All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Veterans Beyond the Wire. I am Tim Keller. Along with me is Matt. And this week we have an awesome guest, Christopher Lang. He is active duty military. He is in the Air Force. He is a senior master sergeant. Sounds fancy to me. E8, I believe. Is that correct, Chris?
It is, yes.
All right. So congratulations on that. You made it a lot farther than I did. But he joined the Air Force back in 2002. So we're looking at, if not 18 years, we're closing in on 18 years.
Yeah, it was 18 years in June.
Oh, well, congratulations. You're originally from Massachusetts, correct?
Yes, go Patriots.
Boo. Boo. Hopefully we have
here. I'm in Cincinnati. It doesn't matter to me.
Hey, you guys got some young talent in there in Cincinnati.
We'll see
Things can get exciting. So, Chris, you joined back in 2002. I wanted to ask why. What spurred you to join the military and the Air Force specifically?
Well, I know a lot of people who came in around my time frame were affected by 9/11. Mm-hmm. But I had actually already dipped in to the Air Force actually a year before 9/11. When I was 5 years old, my grandmother lived in San Francisco. And we went on a plane ride, to go see her, my dad's mom. And we were at an airport, whatever, it was delayed or canceled. And, this was back in the time when like kids could just roam airports freely, unattended. We didn't even have the leashes, back then. And,
good old days.
Yeah. And I mean, I was able to just all day, just sitting there watching planes take off, the different sizes, the different colors, all the people getting on there. We got to go into the cockpit and we got the wings. And from that point on, I just fell in love with airplanes. So I knew I wanted to do something like that. And then everything that honestly the military offered, the education, the travel, and I get to work with airplanes. I mean, it just seemed like it was too good to be true. So yeah, I dipped in my junior year of high school. And I think it was 5 days after I graduated, I was getting off the bus in San Antonio for basic training. Awesome.
So if you hadn't had joined the Air Force, do you think you'd have found a way to be working in aircrafts?
Yeah, more than likely, I probably would have gone to school to be a pilot. Okay. They have a lot of great schools in the Northeast for that. So more than likely, I probably would have still done something aviation related. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I do see on your LinkedIn before this, you were doing some sort of sheet metal work. Is that just a high school job just to
Yeah, it was actually kind of a scammer thing that we did. I went to a Voc Techs high school, and your junior year, you could either do 2 weeks of shop or you could go work in your industry and get paid and get experience for supposedly post career. So yeah, I worked at a HVAC company, banging sheet metal duct and wrapping pipe and making slips and doing all that sort of stuff, just as kind of a gig to make some money instead of during the summer. But also I think even though it was a lot of hard work and I appreciated the opportunities that they gave me, I also realized on that hot July day, when you're in an attic and it's 120 degrees and you're hanging an air handler, walking in between joists, it's not something I wanted to do the rest of my life.
Dusty, dirty spider webs.
Exactly. So
I've found that a flight line in Kuwait is much more preferable in the middle of the summer.
It's probably just as hot actually. But let's talk about your service so far. 18 years in the Air Force. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you've got to experience.
So, I don't know if it's different for me than everybody else, but, prior to basic training, I was nervous. I assume everybody else was maybe. But what we did was we watched Full Metal Jacket on repeat for like the first 3 weeks prior to, and just to kind of mentally prepare ourselves. And Air Force basic training was absolutely nothing like that.
I was going to say, so you got prepared for the worst. You prepared for the worst, and then you got things like, oh,
exactly,
this is awesome. I have a very similar story. I had never seen Full Metal Jacket, and about 2 weeks before I left for Marine Corps boot camp, my dad said, "Hey, we're going to sit down and have a movie night together and watch Full Metal Jacket." He wanted to see if I could make it through the movie and still go, yeah, that's what I want to do. And so I was all right.
That movie is the reason I signed up. Not kidding. I feel like I watched it 15 times before I went, and I was like, okay. And it wasn't too far off. I mean, it wasn't.
Boot Camp was still pretty very similar to what that movie portrays.
There's some Hollywood there, but it wasn't too far off in terms of some of the yelling and shouting and ridiculousness. Mm-hmm. So sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, and it wasn't anything like that. And in fact, I was in the 324th Training Squadron, and our nickname was Disneyland. I mean, it like our biggest thing is like we didn't get to make a phone call for like the first 3 weeks. But that was like, and the only time I got yelled at is because I don't know what it was. It was the saltpeter in the Gatorade or whatever, but the Chow Hall food was freaking amazing there. And I couldn't get enough of it. And maybe it's just because we were so sleep deprived and tired of working out and everything. But yeah, I stood up one time and I hadn't finished eating my hot dog. And this TI saw me from about 400 yards away and jumped about 8 tables to come in my face and make me swallow it. So that was pretty much it. Our flight was so undisciplined. We were the only flight to be doing push-ups and shit on the parade grounds in our blues during graduation practice. So, I mean, we had just kind of gone off the rails. But, I came in as a aircraft crew chief. Luckily, I wanted to do heavy aircraft because I didn't want to be a fighter crew chief because they didn't get to fly with the airplanes. Mm-hmm. So luckily I got assigned to the C-17 cargo aircraft in Charleston. So after basic training, I went to Wichita Falls, Texas, which is an absolute gem if no one's ever been there. And did my tech school training with basically like aircraft fundamentals where it's, hey, this is a wing, this is an engine, this is how, airplanes fly. Now go work. And I went to Charleston and started learning the C-17. I was there for about a year before I became a flying crew chief. But I was so eager when I joined the military, just you see the commercials, you hear the stories, you just want to go and do. So I got my upgrade training done and I went into the deployment manager's office. I was like, what do you got? I'm ready to go. What do you got? 19 years old. What do you got? Oh, we got this awesome trip, going, no details, but if you want it, it's yours. I'm like, fine, sign me up. Well, it ended up being a security forces augmentee job to Kirkuk Air Base, Iraq, for 5 months in July 2003, obviously after, all the shock and awe stuff had happened, but, Saddam was still running around. So I got there and, we're just completely naive. We don't really, I think when you're that young, you don't realize everything that you're doing when you get put into a combat zone, especially as an aircraft mechanic. Right. Now I'm carrying an M16 around every single day. I'm in charge of an armory. I'm doing convoys to all these places, seeing things that I really don't want to see. But I don't know. We just kind of rolled the punches. It was like on our coins, we had, embrace the suck. And that was just because we were all in a shitty position and we knew it, but we enjoyed it. And I don't know, it was, we're in alarm red so often in our bunkers that we ran a 13-inch TV out to it and hooked up Mario Kart. So that like we're sitting in our Kevlar playing Mario Kart as the base is being shelled, So when you do that stuff now, it's kind of like, what the hell were you doing? But, at that time, you just don't realize it.
When you're a kid, you're invincible. Nothing bad's going to happen to you. And now, when we're all grown up and we're parents, and now, I'm afraid to go play in the woods with my kid because I'm going to pull a muscle in my back. Yeah. So you made it over to Iraq. Any other travels? You mentioned a couple places. Can you tell us where you've been in your career so far?
Yeah, so basically after that deployment, I became a flying crew chief on C-17. So I hit, I think, 68 countries in 2 years.
That's it.
Yeah, and that was it. We had stages basically set up where it was like Germany, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Kuwait, Qatar, all these places. And we would basically just sit there for 30 or 40 days and just hop on whatever C-17 needed a crew chief for that day's mission or that week's mission or whatever. So technically, per the regs, we would have to go back to the States for like, a week or whatever. But what I would do is I would have my next trip set up. So I'd basically go back for the minimum amount of time and then go right back. So, I mean, we were just doing double shuttles everywhere. I mean, taking anything from toilet paper to, frog teams and stuff like that, wherever it needed to go. So I definitely got to see a lot of the world, a lot of great stories from that. My very first trip overseas, we went to go pick up the 4-star Marine general who was, I think his name was Jones at the time.
General Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the Supreme Allied Commander. And we were giving him a tour of Afghanistan, and the NATO headquarters is in Brussels. So I remember we flew from Charleston to Andrews. We picked up a bunch of cargo, and then we flew to Brussels. And I remember we got there at like noon, and I had no idea really what was going on. And we got there at noon. We checked into the hotel, awesome hotel, and I was like, "Well, what do we do now?" And the AC, the aircraft commander, said, "All right, we're taking off at 9, so crew bus at 8 tomorrow." I was like, "Well, what do we do between now and then?" And he just looked at me like at a weird face, and he just said, "Whatever the fuck you want, just get out of here." So, I mean, I went straight to the ATM with my government travel card, brand new, forgot about the exchange rate, took out like 400 euro, which was like, $600-700 bucks, 300 over my per diem for the entire trip. And, I went and was walking around Brussels, at 19 years old, thinking, holy shit, what am I doing here? This is crazy. And just, went and got a legit Belgian waffle and went and got a bunch of Belgian beers and everything like that. So, stuff like that, you just don't really realize. Kids at school that you went to school with, could still be working at McDonald's, and here you are walking around, Belgium after a 6 months in Iraq. So,
right.
We went to Afghanistan, had a bunch of, they had that ISAF there. That like international, whatever, they would come out and service your airplanes. Well, came out our very first stop. I think it was like Bagram, Afghanistan. And, they're like, "Oh, we'll refuel." So I was like, all right. So I just start doing my post-flight inspection. And all of a sudden, I hear people screaming. I look around the other side of the airplane, and the refueling dude is running towards the mountains. And there's this fuel pouring, like shooting vertically out of the airplane. And I'm like, what the freaks? Well, what happened was they didn't lock the shutoff valve properly, the SPR. And because that's a pressurized fuel line, because it was cracked open, now fuel was escaping the airplane. So I go in there and I, punch the poppet valve back closed, but now I'm soaked in gas, like really soaked. I've only got one flight suit. The aide to the general is like, "You know what? He's actually got a little bit of a weaker stomach, so you're going to have to sit in the back of the airplane." So like for a week, I literally sat on like the cargo ramp of the airplane as we flew everywhere because I stunk so bad, and there was like nowhere to wash. You can't get jet fuel off of anything. I basically just had to throw it away. But,
yeah.
Wait, let's go back for a second because I'm curious why this guy was refueling the aircraft, and as it started to leak, his first intention was to get up and run away. So tell me about that guy. What happened to his career? Is he still in?
Yeah, I have no idea if he was like some sort of Canadian military dude. I don't know who those guys comprised of, but I don't know if he thought that maybe, he would have to pay out the insurance claim or something on it. I don't know, but that was his first instinct, is to just drop this giant metal thing on the concrete and run away. So,
run away and then come back whistling like 2 minutes later, like, "Oh gosh, what happened here?"
Yeah.
Oh my God. Somebody needs to clean this up. This is terrible.
So you guys need more gas, or are you good? Or
What happened?
Yeah. God,
That's amazing. That's
yeah,
right. So you were covered in jet fuel for, you said days?
Days, yes.
Days.
Yeah, that's something a baby wipe isn't taking out, is it?
No.
No. And I mean, I had it, just basically, I had the top part tied around my waist half the time, and I didn't care if anybody, gave me static about it or anything. We were supposed to be sanitized anyway, but, patches and everything off. But, it was just moments like that, and at that point I realized that nobody is ever allowed to touch my airplane ever again. So that never happened. But at that point, you just didn't know, you're just so young, you're new to everything. But no, as a flying crew chief on 17s, I went all over the world, basically everywhere but Antarctica. I was actually slated to go to Antarctica, and our plane broke in Australia, so that kind of sucked. But it's been a pleasure, and it was an absolute pleasure and honor to see the things that I've done and do the things that we were able to do. So that was from 2004 till about 2007. And when I was going through the Airman Leadership School as a senior airman, E4, I got this random email, and the subject line was just AF-1. I was like, oh, I wonder what this is. So I click on it. It's like, hey, you've got your upgrade training. You don't have any discipline issues. Would you like to apply to be a crew chief on Air Force One? I was like, whatever. Sure, I'll throw something in. So I threw it in, and then they came back with another package and then another package, and then the security clearance came through. It took about a year and a half to get it, because you get the top secret clearance, but also you get Yankee White, which is basically gives you direct access to the president, just so you're not going to be one of those like crazy people who stabs him with a pencil in the hallway or anything like that. So, I got that, and then in 2007, me and my new bride rolled up to DC and started there. And once again, Air Force One, it's an amazing aircraft, amazing group of people working on it. It definitely had its moments. If you didn't have leave on the books, prepare to work. Because that's just one aircraft. It's the most recognizable aircraft, I think, in the entire world.
I would agree.
Yeah.
But it's also the one thing where if it doesn't go, it's headline news. So you don't want to be the crew that forgets to change a couple tires or leaves it broken, and then why is the president showing up in a Gulfstream or whatever else? Because a lot of the people, it'd be funny when we go to locations, there'd be a line of people out there with the press and everything, and they were just ready to see the airplane. They didn't even care about the president. So it was a really big deal for us every time we landed somewhere to see it. So yeah, it was an incredible honor. For the first year on Air Force One, I was an exterior crew chief, so I did the landing gears, did the wings, did the engines, all that sort of stuff, got familiar with that. And then I became the interior NCOIC, or those who don't know, non-commissioned officer in charge. And the entire 4,000 square feet of the interior was, my responsibility, from the carpet to the wood to the leather to everything inside, the bathrooms. I mean, everything. They sent us to classes to be subject matter experts in all those things. And so on that aircraft, if that aircraft's going right, this might be a silly question, but are you riding on it too? Or are you riding when the president's on it? Are you on it, or do you typically hang back in the hangar and wait for it to come back and do the work? Yeah, we did travel with it. We had a crew of, I think, 16 or 17 crew chiefs per aircraft, because they're the two 747s. And we would always have we would have an entire crew go with it. So we would have two crew chiefs. You would have a bunch of flight attendants. We would have Ravens or flying cops with us. The Secret Service would go. Everybody was on there. So pilots, navigators, flight engineers. I mean, we would travel with an entire crew. And it doesn't matter if we were going from DC to Richmond, Virginia, or, Afghanistan. Yeah, I think I've watched a couple of documentaries on YouTube about Air Force One, and you see all the guys in suits. Obviously, you see maybe some Secret Service pop up in the video, and you see all the important politician people, but you don't see the crew. Every once in a while, you'll see the pilot or the cockpit or something like that. But I don't think I ever imagined that there was this whole crew of people keeping the thing running, which makes perfect sense. And by any military standard, I'd probably expect those guys to be there. But it's the kind of behind the scenes, which I think a lot of us have been privy to as well in the military. There's all the things that happen in the background, but all you see is the show on the news, so to speak. So very cool. Very cool. I was going to tell you before we talk about Air Force One, because I have a couple of questions about it. I was on a boss lift thing years ago on a KC-135 tanker. I got to ride with the Air National Guard here in Ohio, and they told me that we were refueling C-17s one day. We were flying over Ohio, going to do some mid-air refuels. And I was expecting that, like, we were on a pretty big aircraft, or so I thought. It was like a KC-135 is like the size of maybe a 737. I don't know, like somewhere around there. I could be way off. It's a Boeing 707. Okay. Okay. So I'm sitting in the tail of this aircraft, and we're looking out the back. And if you could imagine
a shopping mall pulling up behind your aircraft. Like, it was that big, the C-17 compared to the aircraft we were on. I expected another airplane our same size to pull up behind us. And this thing was pulling up behind us. And I couldn't, I'm trying to imagine looking out the back window on the refueler boom, and there's this windshield rolling up, and the windshield is 3 times the size of our aircraft. And I see these two little guys in the windows, and they're like waving. But it was a pretty amazing experience because this thing coming up behind us was actually making our aircraft move. It was like displacing the air. So we're in front of him flying, right? And our aircraft is kind of doing one of these. It was a pretty amazing experience, but an aircraft, no less, that thing is massive. And I'm sure it can carry a lot of equipment. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. It can carry 18 pallets of cargo. I've had 2, what are the small helicopters? The 2 Hueys. I don't know what their military designation is, but we've had those on there. I mean, fire trucks, everything. And that's funny because the C-17 is actually one of the second biggest. The C-5 is actually bigger, and that can carry almost 36 pallets, almost double the size. But
isn't it crazy?
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. When we would do aerial refuels, the 2 aerial refuelers that we have is the KC-10, which is the DC-10 format. It's got that 3rd engine up on the tail, and then we have that KC-135. And as you're approaching it, they're pushing the air up, so it's kicking the tail of the other one.
Yep.
And with the 135, because they have just the engines on the wings, once you just pass that initial wave, then it's nice and smooth.
Yeah.
Our issue with the KC-10 was because our elevators were up on the T-tail, so it kind of looked like this.
Yep.
That 3rd engine would just keep washing out our tail. And it would be the bumpiest carnival ride ever. And like you're talking about, you're looking up at the window and there's an airplane 60 feet away, and you're traveling at this speed.
Right.
And now there's this little dong about to come out and touch your airplane, and it's like, man, sometimes there would be a little bit of turbulence, and then the boom would come undone, and now gas is spraying all over your windshield, and it's like, oh my God, here we go.
Everything's okay, folks. Everybody settle down. It's just we're only going 400 miles an hour at 35,000 feet on a roller coaster with jet fuel, a tank full of jet fuel.
Just being sprayed everywhere.
But it's okay. We're going to be okay.
Yeah. But no, those are definitely interesting moments, but we needed them. We just couldn't on those long trips, 8-9 hours in the air, we just didn't have it, especially when on the C-17, each engine, there are 4 engines, puts out about 26,000 horse. So you're definitely using some gas.
That's about like what my car has. My car does about that.
Yeah.
Or so I pretend.
Yeah. So you mentioned before we started the broadcast today, when people get to see and tour things like Air Force One, there's always those questions because of how popular an aircraft like this one is. There's been movies made about it. You see it on TV. You see it on the news. What are some of those questions? What are some of the things you've heard and people have asked you?
Yeah. So, whenever the president travels to a location, whether it be for a fundraising event or whether it be for some sort of election thing, it's usually protocol where they invite the congressmen and women from that state or district to travel with us. So it's usually we're giving those families and then maybe any military families that we know there tours of the aircraft after the president has already departed. And the stupid Air Force One movie from Harrison Ford, which you've all seen, which is completely legitimate.
I figured it probably was very realistic.
Yeah. I mean, so you're going, I could just imagine what these people are thinking. They're walking up to this giant, beautifully painted, shiny 747 that takes the president around the world. And the first question you ask is, where's the escape pod? And just, I know that I might know a lot about aircraft, opposed to the normal person. But I mean, just to think that there's some sort of unpressurized ramp in the back of the airplane that houses this dynamite loaded, Apollo looking, ship that has, a parachute. It sounds ridiculous, So after so many years of answering the same questions, it was like this. The Russian dudes, after they took over the airplane in that movie, went into the coat closet, which happened to have like some sort of weapons cache as well. All the automatic weapons and grenade launchers and all this crap. So actually, President Obama, his aide Reggie, was actually the captain of the Duke basketball team when they won the national championship. So they would always have like a basketball on the aircraft with them. And so in this coat closet. So what I would tell people is, behind this door is where stuff is, but I'm not allowed to open it. Stuff like that. I would go down to the lower lobe, show them where the refrigerators were, and be like, yeah, we can't go anywhere past there because, it's classified. And it's really literally just like technical orders and like our suitcases and everything. But
frankly, I'm disappointed that there's not an escape pod. I was really hoping that that you were going to tell us that there was this escape pod with a big parachute on it and it would get launched out the back.
Well, I could potentially just be lying to you right now either.
That's true. And I'm sure there's a lot you can't talk about, right? I mean, there's a lot of classified information there.
Yes. I mean, they would not put the president on something that's unsafe and doesn't have all the communications that it would necessarily need. I can't remember the amount of NDAs that I've signed in my career. It just kind of got to a point where just sign this. You don't even read it anymore.
Right.
Just don't talk about anything.
I was going to say that they already got you in. So what more can they possibly do? They already got you to sign that big piece of paper. So
yeah, I think the one fun thing about that was, and traveling with them is that, the optics is so big, every little thing is dissected and digested. We would have a press pool that flew on the aircraft. Mm-hmm. And these are the people, whenever the president lands anywhere, they're the ones with the cameras and the reporters down below at the bottom of the stairs. And because Michelle Obama, had that get fit or whatever it was, that let's get fit type program where she wanted, getting active. So the optics of that was if she ever flew on the aircraft, we couldn't eat like crap, because the
steam broccoli and rice for everybody
basically ate the same thing. So when she would be on the airplane, it'd be like eating tofu burgers and rabbit food.
Are you saying Barack was sliding some Big Macs and some Whoppers, maybe
Twinkies and things?
I'm not saying anything like that.
In that closet, it was not a weapons stash. That's where he kept all the snack food.
You can go back there.
You can have him on the pod next week and let you tell all about it. But I can tell you, we did not eat like rabbits when he was flying solo.
Awesome. So since Air Force One, where have you been? What have you been doing since then?
So Air Force One was 2007 to 2013. We actually ended up coming back to the area that my wife grew up in Southern Illinois. So Scott Air Force Base is here, and it's the Air Mobility Command headquarters. For the next 3 years, from 2014 to 17, I worked in the Tanker and Airlift Control Center, which TACC, which is basically like a giant flight operations maintenance control for the Air Force. So my section was with aircraft maintenance. So anytime any Air Force aircraft was on an Air Mobility Command mission and it was off of its home station and it broke, I was the one who had to coordinate all the parts, people, and equipment to go fix it in the world, no matter where it was. So basically utilizing the rapid air global mobility forces of the Air Force. I would find a KC-135 or a C-130 that was flying from point A to point B and say, here, take this spanner wrench and give it to these dudes when you land, type thing. All the way to engine changes, putting full engine change packages for a C-17 on another C-17 in, Africa or somewhere. So, and then all the logistics that goes along with that, making sure they have all the tools, making sure they have the equipment, the oils, everything like that. And then coordinating all those fixes and relaying that to, the flight managers. Say, hey, well, this C-17 is going to be fixed in, 5 hours. So you can go ahead and schedule on a mission to go do whatever it wants. So, that was a long, the TACC, and there's a bunch of videos on YouTube about it, but you ever see that show 24?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where they've got that like command center with all the the lights are low and the giant screens,
Right,
and
right.
everybody's got a computer. I mean, that's exactly what it was like.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, you send an entire engine package out to, like you said, somewhere in Africa, and then you forget to send that extra belt or something, that drive belt.
yeah,
Don't worry,
Yeah,
guys, we'll be there tomorrow.
not super great days
Yeah.
when something like that happens, or if something gets missed, because and it's we were using our experience being mechanics on those aircraft to kind of know what you would need. I would know if you're BSing me or not, or I would know, hey, if you're doing this, you'll probably need this, this, and this as well. And maybe they didn't forgot about it, or maybe they didn't know. But you're also at the whim of the people at the aerial ports. Did they forget to load this? Did they put this on there? So it was always a challenge. There was always something going on, and then when weather plays in all that as well. So everybody wants an e-tick or their plane fix first. Every single mission is their this is the Air Force's number one mission. I'm like, yeah, but you just said that about the other mission yesterday.
Right.
It's like,
well, and it's interesting. Like the bigger piece of this picture is that we talk about this kind of stuff because I think we've all been, anybody who served in the military has been part of these types of missions where we got to do something, has to be done, something has to happen right now, and of course you're a little bit older in your career right now, but let's imagine for a second the people that are carrying out a lot of this work are 21-year-olds. These are kids essentially. And I'd like to highlight that for the sake of our conversation here. It's a lot of the fabric of our topics is what the military is capable of and what it teaches people. These are our kids. These are people who are accomplishing a lot more. You're talking about like refitting aircraft engines in Africa. Something like parts have been mailed in and flown in and stuff like that. And who's doing a lot of that work? I mean, it's a bunch of people who are under 30 years old, right? I mean, can you talk about that? Like, talk about the average age of your crews.
Yeah. So the pilots were obviously, they had to go through a lot of schooling. They had to go through a lot of flight schools. So they're usually late 20s, early 30s. And then if you flew with the reserve crews, guard crews or whatever, you're talking about some dudes who have been flying airplanes for 40, 50 years sometimes.
Right.
But yeah, a lot of the maintenance guys in the Air Force are a little bit more rank driven. When you get to be that senior NCO, the E7 Master Sergeant, you're more of a supervisory kind of an office type guy. So yeah, the younger guys, the senior airmen, the staff sergeants, the E4s to the E6s, they're the ones humping, doing all this work.
Right.
And I know a lot of people think, oh my goodness, you have to do all these long commitments in the military, several years, but the military needs that time in order to train you. And it costs money to do that. I'm 20 years old and I was put in charge of a $250 million aircraft. That's a lot of responsibility, not to mention the stuff in the back that could be worth over $1 billion that nobody knows about. So it's a lot of pressure, but also, they never put you in a situation that you wouldn't be prepared for.
Right.
So, before you become a flying crew chief, you need to be fully qualified as a crew chief, but also you need to be cut trained into all the other specialties. So hydraulics, electronic, environmental, fuel, all those specialties, guidance and control, you need to know everything about that aircraft, because there are going to be times when you're being shot at and something doesn't turn on, and what are you going to do?
Right.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. That age factor plays a lot into it. But I don't want people to think that, we're just a bunch of random kids running around, doing that, because we take training very seriously. If we're not flying active missions, we are training. And I know you guys were the same way in the Marines. Yep. Our friend, our mutual friend, Tom Corson at Dynasty Infidel was basically telling me there was never a day when you just did nothing.
Yeah, you don't have days where you just sit around. That's for sure.
What's
Shout
that
out
mean?
to Tom, by the way.
Yeah, and it's like that old thing, you always hear that crusty NCO, you got time to lean, you got time to clean, type stuff. So, I mean, it's not that the government wants to get their money back. It's that we're being put in situations that we can't fail. You know, a lot of these things are no fail missions,
Right.
And a lot of moving pieces happen. You know, even if you want to look at it from the perspective of, yeah, I might be bringing toilet paper, you know, a bunch of toilet paper to the AOR, but you know, you guys are there. You've been in country for a while. You know, you need a lot of these essential things. You know,
Yes.
we might, you know, I know there's the whole joke about the Air Force and the Marines and the Army and the Navy, and we all have our little rivalries and whatnot. But, you know, when it gets down to we're all in the shit, you know, we all
play well together when we need to. And
exactly.
yeah.
If
And
my
we
plane is
can't, and
broke,
we can't fail. We can't fail each other.
Yeah.
exactly. If my plane is broke in some random airstrip in freaking Iraq, I really hope that the Marines are there to come and save me, and vice versa. You know, it
And
just
the next time we need the toilet paper, hey, you're the man for the job. You know,
I might even throw in some potato chips for you.
I like that.
See?
I like that.
Looking out for each other. Looking out for each other.
It's a symbiotic relationship if you really.
He's going to take a bag of those chips out of Obama's stash and bring them to us.
Out of the closet, the coat
Yeah,
closet.
there you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, that logistics controller job sounds pretty intense. Seems like there's a lot of detail that goes into that. I know you mentioned to me yesterday. We were talking on Twitter. You actually are headed somewhere else here shortly. Is that right?
Yes. So for the last 3 years, I've been in the commercial airlift division. So what we do is all the commercial airlines, you know, that you fly on every day to go visit your families, they all have DoD contracts. And back in 1985, there was a commercial air carrier called Aero Airways, and they were bringing back some troops from Fort Campbell who were on a peacekeeping mission in the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. And after a refuel stop in Gander, Newfoundland, Canada, the plane crashed. 248 soldiers and all the crew members died. So obviously when you lose, you know, half a battalion, Congress got involved and said, hey, who in the military has oversight of these commercial contracts? And it was a he said, she said, and it was really no one. So they created our office. And basically now any commercial airline who has a contract with the DoD, we go and inspect them from top to bottom, from operations and maintenance, make sure they're operating safely. What is the risk to the DoD passenger? You know, all of I think they're called the Patriot Express now, but probably the Freedom Birds that you guys took, you know, all those carriers, you know, making sure they're safe. They have all the equipment they need. They're following all the regulations. So, you know, that's what I've been doing now for the last 3 years, but I poked my head out of the sand to make Senior Master Sergeant E8, and the assignment people caught me. Gotcha. You know, it's one of those things where the higher you get in rank, the less there are of you, and the more positions there are, because when somebody retires or they separate from the military, like we talked about how long it takes somebody to train, you just can't replace that person overnight. You know, you can't replace an E6 in the Marines, you know, tomorrow. You know, so many years of experience and training that needs to go into that. So, yeah, I got pulled as I'll be the new superintendent of one of the aircraft maintenance units at McConnell Air Force Base in Wichita, Kansas. Right now with my rank, how high your tenure works is I can stay in a maximum of 26 years in the military before they force retire me out. But once you hit that 20-year mark, then you're eligible to retire. So in October 2022, I hit that, and we'll see where we're at when we get there.
There you go. There you go.
So let's talk about that. October 2022. That would be the first time you would have the ability to then separate from the Air Force, or in this case, retire from the Air Force.
Yep.
Have you really put a lot of thought into that yet?
I actually have. You know, like we were talking about the crazy stuff that you do when you're a younger airman or a younger guy in the military. You know, it's all about drinking and partying and motorcycles and tattoos. My life priorities have since changed since those days. You know, now I'm excited about getting my daughter to school every morning. You know, I'm excited about going to vacuum the pool. The little things in life now that you didn't really think about when you're 18, 19 years old. So right now, the military has offered me so many opportunities, but yeah, I think it's the military. The uniform is not forever, but the family is. So I'm going to focus on them from now on. So about a couple years ago, after we had our daughter, started really focusing on my post-military career. So I know that aviation, there are a lot of opportunities for it, but there's no guarantee that that's going to be available when I retire. We've had some people in our office who were pilots in the Air Force, and they just happened to retire, but none of the airlines were hiring.
Right.
So now it's like, crap, now what do we do? So what I've been doing is I got my bachelor's degree from the University of Louisville in organizational leadership, just trying to find something that transcends any career field. And now I'm getting my master's in business administration, my MBA through Western Kentucky. And once again, that's another thing that, I can use in the aviation world, or I can go and work, somewhere else.
Right.
So, but I have had some, the Air Force has afforded me the opportunity to get some certification. So I have my Federal Aviation Airframe and Power Plant license, which is basically a prerequisite if you ever want to work in the aviation industry for maintenance. They also have, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Six Sigma, the lean processes. So I have my green belt certification for that.
Awesome.
I also have an associate's degree in aerospace technology. So I tried, the Air Force pays tuition assistance up to 100%. So, you're just a fool if you don't utilize that, because all I've had to do for an associate's, a bachelor's, and now a master's is pay for books.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I can't beat that.
Something you said just a minute ago that struck me, and this is something that I love to talk about with people who are leaving the armed forces, is you don't, like, from the outsider looking in, anybody listening might say, well, you could go work in, like, for an airline, but the current situation is that you cannot. If you were to walk out right now, those jobs are probably not going to be available at this moment in time. But that you are preparing yourself, even 2 years out at least. You're preparing yourself to maybe even step into a whole other career and literally leave behind maybe the technical skills that you have right now and pursue something that is completely unrelated. And that's a power play, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people think, well, I did this in the military, I have to go do this out in the real world, out of the civilian workforce. And you don't have to do that. And a lot of us don't do that. A lot of us leave the armed forces and we pursue something that is completely opposite of what we did in the military. So are you getting career counseling on that? Or is that kind of a decision that you came to, hey, I'm going to pursue a couple of other things and just have my backpack loaded up for that moment where I step out the door? How did you come to that decision?
We do have some career counselors. They're called career assistance advisors. My very first, I think it was 2003, my very first EPR, which is an evaluation performance report that you get every year, was basically copied and pasted from another kid who was kind of a douchebag. And from that point on, I realized that I can't let anybody else be in charge of my career or in control of it. So from that point on, as a 19-year-old airman, I wrote all my own evaluations. I wrote all my own medals, all my own award packages. So I just kind of took my career by the horns.
Right.
So yeah, from that aspect, you can kind of see what the opportunities are going to be, because, it just, especially with election years, it's very cyclical. A lot of these industries, right now there was a pilot shortage, but now with COVID, now everybody's hiring.
Right.
So, and you just never know what exactly is going to be out there. So I just wanted to put myself in the best position possible. Having options is all you can ask for. I know a lot of people who I've gone through like professional military education with, in the Army. I was like, oh, you're coming up on time. What are you going to do? Oh, I'll be a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like, I don't know if that's like the Army standard question, I'm just going to be a cop, or
10 years ago, it was everybody got out of the military and went and became a cop, or that's what the pursuit was. I used to go to career fairs professionally. And I mean, they still today, there are 50 police departments in the room. So yeah, I mean, it's absolutely.
Yeah. But I just think with our experience in the military and the leadership that we have, We're just so far above and beyond so many of these other kids who are just coming out of college in your entry level positions. I mean, we had a story one time at one of our at the NCO Academy where the CEO of Pepsi, was had a briefing from one of the chief master sergeants of the Air Force, and they talked about how young airmen, get trained and they get developed in their development process. And they're like, this Pepsi CEO was like, oh my God, I can't believe you guys do that. Who do you guys teach us to? Like 19-year-olds? Like, oh my God, we do that to our executives now.
Right.
So a lot of the things that we're doing, you were talking about being in charge of $200 million worth of assets at such a young age. When you get up in the upper echelons of rank, now you're in charge of an entire squadron or a battalion. Like right now, I'm about to go and be in charge of 350 young airmen.
Right.
Under your leadership, who are doing extraordinary, amazing things, pulling off these missions, doing these things day in and day out. So when you get into a civilian corporation, that leadership and everything that we've learned, that camaraderie, that brotherhood should take you a long way.
I wrote an article on LinkedIn a few years ago called "Veterans Have an Unfair Advantage," and it was met with a little bit of resistance, but the premise was exactly the same, and that is these are people that at a young age, and the reason, going back to your technicians and mechanics, we're talking about, these are essentially kids who have been trained up. They're young people. When I say kids, I don't mean they're just kind of running around putting engines on airplanes, obviously, but they are essentially they're young men and women who have had this amazing training, technical and leadership training, and sometimes 10 years into their military career, they are already leading people and leading budgets, and they're responsible for X amount of dollars of equipment that some people don't ever reach until they're 40, 50 years old in their civilian careers. So we absolutely do have this unfair advantage, and I use that term because it's when employers 10 years ago were looking for talent, sometimes they would pass up the military person and be like, well, I'm going to go look for the MBA. Fair enough, but you're going to miss somebody in the military who already has all this experience, practical application experience.
And they've already done it.
Right. Zero fail environments.
Yes.
Right.
That is, I was going to bring that up, is you can go and get the kid out of college. Chris brought that up. You got the little step just above these kids out of college. Mm-hmm. If you had a guy that spent 6 years in the Air Force, got out, whatever field he chose to go to, and he's up against a 22-year-old, 23-year-old that just got out of college. Yes, that degree obviously is something maybe this job's looking for, but you can guarantee that 26-year-old that just got out of the armed forces has been tested in real world situations, has felt pressure like this other human being just hasn't felt yet in their life until they're put into those sort of situations in a professional career where they have to meet certain deadlines at a certain time. These people that are coming out of the military know what that pressure is like, and not only know what the pressure is like, know how to succeed under that sort of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it's not necessarily, when we say under pressure that we're under fire, because sometimes you are, but a lot of it is, missions, deadlines, like you said, budgets and resources, you've got to be accountable for all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And especially in our sequestration time now, you've got to do more with less.
Right. And,
COVID-19 is a perfect example of that. Now companies are having to do a lot with less. We've basically been teleworking here since March, where our building has basically been manned just 10%. So we VPN in every morning. We do our work. We'll go in the office occasionally, but that doesn't mean that we can't do our jobs. I might be, wearing my pajamas in the morning, but I've still got to affect everything that I've been doing in uniform. Right. The inspections, evaluations have to be completed on time. They have to be thorough. They have to be, precise. And I know a lot of people they're back to full strength, 100% on base, and mm-hmm. just because, there's a pandemic doesn't mean that the mission stops.
Right.
Just because there's a tsunami or a hurricane, the mission does not stop. It doesn't matter.
if you look at the execution of any corporation or any company, I mean, managers and leaders are looking for people that can execute, people that can execute under any circumstances. Business doesn't stop either, you know. And again, I think that the reason I mention all of this is because there's a disconnect between people who have not served in the military that don't see that side of the military. They think it's everybody's walking around in camouflage carrying a gun. It's simply not true. Some of your strongest executors of operations are sitting in the military with that uniform on. And even when everything is falling apart, and as you mentioned, we're not all getting shot at, but even when we are being shot at, we're still executing. We're still carrying forward the mission. And again, I'll say it again for the 15th time. In zero fail environments, we're not walking away from it. We're not the guy with the fuel hose who's running away from the spilling fuel. You know, we're
the guys like Chris. That's going to think under that moment of pressure and stress, and be able to walk there and hit that button and live his life. Soaked in fuel for a few days, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of our sayings is flexibility is the key to air power, and you have to adjust to your environments. You just have to. So it's
flexibility for any branch of the military. I think is extremely important, and you know that's kind of what we talk about here is those sort of things. Being able to work under pressure, being flexible, are the things that make veterans great hires.
Right.
And I think problem solving as well. I mean, even though, you know, when we're younger and we're making, you know, devices out of our MRE magnesium packets and everything. And, you know, a bored military member is the most dangerous person in the world. But, you know, you've got to solve problems. You know, when you're a leader, you can't just go in and expect them to fix everything. You know, I had somebody come, you know, I went in one time to an officer's office and said, "Hey, you know, we have this big problem." He's like, "Okay, well, what's the solution?" Like, I don't know. Like, well, don't come to me with problems.
Anybody can point out a problem.
Yep. Don't come to me with problems. Come to me with solutions.
Yep.
You know, he's the person that can enact that solution, but you need to come up with it. I'm not going to do it for you. I'm not going to hold your hand because there are times we can't. You know, I know it's great for mommy and daddy to do that for you and to pay your tuition in college and to do your room and board and everything. But no, you're not doing that. When you're sleeping in a tent in Iraq and you've got A-10s flying over and the alarm goes off, you know, somebody's not going to come pull you out of bed, put your Kevlar on, and get you into the bunker.
Yeah. Where's your stuff? Where'd you leave your rifle?
Yeah.
Don't forget your ammo.
I'm telling my son, I have a 9-year-old son, and I tell him that all the time. He's like, "Dad, where are my shoes?" I'm like, "Buddy, I'm not the keeper of your shoes. You took them off somewhere. You go find them. Keep your stuff together because you'll never know when you need it." But I am secretly applying that knowledge or that logic of like, you got to keep accountability for your stuff because you know, at any given time we got to walk out the door. Where's your stuff? But you're right though. It's you know, and again, this carries over to the corporate world. You can't. Nobody's going to pick up your stuff for you and solve the problem for you. And it happens sometimes in corporate America. You get a lot of people that defer the problem to somebody else, or let's just kick this down the road, or let's just keep talking about it without actually taking action. You know, something that I took away from my time in the Marine Corps, and you guys might agree with this sentiment. If you don't know what the right answer is, make a decision anyway. Whether you're right or wrong, make a decision, take some action. And I do that every day in my own job. I have to sometimes take, you know, my knowledge of a situation. Let's say I know 80%, I understand 80% of the execution, and I don't understand 20% of the execution. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. So I'm not paralyzed or paralysis by overanalysis. You know, I'm not going to sit there and go, I just can't do it because I don't understand 20% of it. And I think that's what the military conditions us all to do is as you mentioned, this officer who said, you know, come to me with a problem, come to me with solutions. That's every day. If you have a problem, before you go ask anybody else, let's just think about what we can do to mitigate this without bringing anybody else into it. So it's absolutely applicable.
Yep.
So Chris, I want to thank you for coming on the show. And you mentioned earlier the inner branches, a little bit of rivalries. I do want to say I am now at the age where I have family members who are getting to the point where they're thinking about the military as an option for themselves. And when I've been asked, I absolutely love the Marine Corps. I love what I got to do in the Marine Corps, the pride it gave me. But I have directed a few of my family members now towards the Air Force. The individuals I've met, interacted with from the Air Force, you mentioned about them paying tuition and things like that. I do know that while I was in the Marine Corps, those things were available. You really, really, really had to be steadfast and determined in order to get your senior NCOs and your commanding officers to sign off to get you into these schools, though, back then. So a lot of us really just didn't take that initiative and push to get those things. And I don't know if those things are any easier in the Air Force, but I have told family members of mine that if I was to choose a branch for them, I would say it's the Air Force. I think personally the Air Force is the branch that gets you most ready for the corporate world. I think the Air Force runs the most like a corporation, in my opinion. But yeah, I despite all the jokes, with the Chair Force and the Flyboys and all those sort of things, I do want to say thank you very much for your service. Appreciate everything you do. Just wanted to remind everybody, it is September now. September is National Suicide Prevention Month. Got some big days this month. We got Labor Day coming up, Patriots Day, obviously, September 11th. Matt, I think we're doing a September 11th episode.
We are.
We want to talk about, obviously a day that changed the world and changed everybody's lives. Everybody remembers exactly where they were and what they were doing on that day if you were alive that day. Chris, the Air Force birthday, I believe, is the 18th of this month.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Apparently it's not a thing like it is for the Marine Corps.
No, it is.
Also, the 18th is the POW MIA recognition day. So solemn day there. But yeah, you guys can follow Chris. Do you want to let them know where they can follow you at, sir? I know you're on LinkedIn, you're on Twitter.
Yep, I'm on Twitter at Clubber_Lang83, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram at CJ Lang. Of course, for OPSEC, my accounts are pretty much locked down, so shoot me a message if you want to friend me. But no, I appreciate the time and obviously your guys' service as well. I remember the VFW parades when I was little, and the guys wearing, the medals, and I just thought, man, that's cool. What could they have done, to in order to be like that? And I have respect for every single person that wore a uniform, whether it be for 4 years or 30 years. I think, like you said, we do have our little rivalries and everything, but at the end of the day, that flag behind you, is what really matters, and we do it for, regardless if people like us or not, or political affiliations or anything like that. We do what we're told. Whether we want to go pound sand or eat crayons or whatever, that's our prerogative. But I think if you really need to respect, the people in the military, and even the commanders in chief. I was always told when Obama became president, we had a lot of Republicans on our crew, and they were just talking smack about, oh no, I don't want to have to salute this Democrat and everything. But you know what? Somebody said, you salute the rank, not the man.
The office.
Exactly. And that is the symbol of the nation. I appreciate you guys as well. And joining the military, I can say it was the best decision for my professional career that I could have done. And, if you want to join any service, I know with the Marines and the Army, a lot of it is family tradition. For me, I didn't really have that tradition. I had an aunt who was in the Navy and an uncle who was in the Army. But other than that, really, we didn't have a lot of military service in my family. So it's something that you can do to set out yourself on your own path.
Right.
That the one joke is the Army sleeps under the stars, the Navy navigates by the stars, and the Air Force judges its hotels by stars. I can't tell you that the Air Force, it's been an amazing opportunity for me. They've given me everything. I mean, I've been to over 70 countries.
Yep.
They paid for 3 degrees, 3 certifications, the travel, and everything. And now, just for 20 years, and it's flown by. I'm going to be getting a pension for the rest of my life, healthcare for my family for the rest of my life.
Awesome.
And now with the they changed the Montgomery GI Bill to the post 9/11 GI Bill. Now you're able to transfer your educational benefits to your spouse or children. So now they're getting free education as well, plus healthcare. So, there's just, if you want to do a pros and cons list, if you're an 18-year-old kid right now, you're coming out of the military with zero student debt. Like we talked about, you're getting experience in the workforce, you're getting technical expertise, and you have that education on top of it if you want to. And yes, tuition, if you're active duty right now, is 100% covered, minus books. So, you can't beat it. Yeah. So, if anybody has any questions about it, please feel free to hit me up. But other than that, I appreciate the time this morning, guys.
Plus, per the DVD, my niece came back from San Antonio about her basic training. There is soft serve ice cream in the mess halls at Air Force Basic Training, which I tried it. I was, hey, this is awesome. Congratulations. Let's sit down and watch the DVD. I'm not going to talk any trash. And then we got to the mess hall portion and it panned through. And I go, wait, can we stop that for a second? Go back about 10 seconds. What is that? Oh, that's the ice cream machine. Okay. I'm very proud of you. I'm now done watching this DVD. I love you to death. This is ridiculous. At best, if we were good, we got a cup of juice on Sundays.
It doesn't register.
I'm like, oh.
No, at best, I got to use both hands to peel an orange instead of just one hand.
So, thank you very much for coming on. Again, we are Veterans Beyond the Wire. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on LinkedIn now. Matt built us a LinkedIn page for the podcast, Twitter, and YouTube. Go check us out in all of those places, as well as your favorite podcast platforms, Apple, Google, Stitcher, all those places. And if you find us over there, give us a rating and review. Let us know what you like about the show. Let us know what you dislike about the show. It's the only way we can get better. Also, if you're listening to this and you are a veteran, active duty military member, or you work in a field that involves the military and you would like to discuss some topics with us, reach out. Let us know you'd like to be a guest on the show and we can try to work something out. But that's all we got for you this week. Thank you very much for checking us out, and we will see you next time here on Veterans Beyond the Wire.